Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the concluding Sedras, two Sedras of the book of Bamidbar, the fourth book of the five books of the Torah. And these are the Sedras of Matos and Masei. And we are dedicating this learning for the speedy and safe release of all of the hostages in Gaza and the safety and security of all of the soldiers in the IDF and the success of the mission. And we are also approaching the 9 days. We are approaching on Sunday night. We have Rosh Chodesh. Sunday night and Monday are going to be Rosh Chodesh Av, the first day of the month of Av, and the stringencies and the levels of mourning of the 3 weeks escalate for the final 9 days of these 3 weeks, culminating in Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. And this is a very austere period. This is a time where throughout our history we have suffered many tragedies, and we are in the midst of very challenging times. And I think that when we look at the words of the Sedra, when we think about certain themes of these two Sedras, and we conclude with the words Chazak, Chazak, V'nischazek, that we say at the end of every book of the Torah that we have the privilege to complete, then we can get encouragement because we are watching the prophecies of the Torah unfold, whether in our own time, whether in times gone by, and we can take courage and comfort that the prophecies that tell of the rebuilding of the Bet HaMikdash, of the restoration of Yisrael, and we, with God's help, have begun this process already. And this is something that can help us, that can lift us up. And this is all from the messages that we read in the Torah. And the two, if we just actually absorb that, practically speaking, the first four books of the Torah contain the material that we see for the first time throughout the Torah, because the fifth book of the Torah, the book of Devarim, is also called Mishneh Torah, which is like a sort of a repetition. It's like a resume of what has gone, what has been said in the previous four books. Moshe Rabbeinu, in the 5 last weeks of his life, uses the opportunity, and it is a soliloquy, it is a speech, the words that are said by Moshe Rabbeinu in his final address to the Jewish people. And so when we come to the end of Bamidbar, this is really the story of Bnei Yisrael in the Torah. And if we look back at the first book of the Torah, Bereshis, this was the cataclysmic creation, Yesh Me'ayin, that Hashem alone can create something from nothing. And this is a once and only event, although the creation is ongoing and Hashem's involvement in that is ongoing. But the actual initial creation of the world, this is something that is recorded in Bereshis. And this is not something that repeats, as it were. And similarly, when we look at Shemos, which is the story of the Exodus from Egypt, and again, this was the beginning of us, Bnei Yisrael, becoming a nation, and the slavery in Egypt and the Exodus from Egypt. Again, these were one-time historical events. And we refer to them, and we trace our beginnings to all of these events, but still these happened once. And then we have the book of Vayikra, which really is also called Torat Kohanim, which means the law of the priests, and that is very much focused on a particular section of Bnei Yisrael. That we have Kohanim, Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael, and much of the detail in the book of Vayikra concerns the Kohanim and their avodah, their particular service in the Bet HaMikdash, in the temple. And so again, this is a more specific application. But when we come to Bamidbar and we see the travails and the ups and the downs of the Jewish people as they journey through the wilderness on their way to the Promised Land, on their way to Eretz Yisrael. And we can see in this book of Bamidbar a lot of life's events, life stories. And this is something that again can resonate, that we can actually not only consider as one-off events, but these are whether it's the people's behavior, the things that are said during this particular book of the Torah. This is something that resonates throughout the ages, that we can really learn from and see ourselves possibly in certain responses of the people and in certain aspects of what they're going through. And so we have, if we just look at the outset of the book of Bamidbar, you could have thought that before the Jewish people go into the land of Israel, they have time in the desert. So it could have been, in inverted commas, downtime. It could have been not very much going on. Sometimes, for example, like August, which they will call the silly month, that things, schools are closed, businesses are closed, people go on holiday, and it's not considered a very productive time. But that's not the case at all. At the very beginning of Bamidbar, we have the encampment of the Bnei Israel around the Mishkan, and the Mishkan, the tabernacle of Hashem, the place where we go, where we connect with Hashem through the services, through the avodot, through the korbanot, through the offerings that we bring. And it's a place of spiritual focus. It's a place, it's our building of, as it were, a home for Hashem that we go to, that we use that as the place, although we can access Hashem anywhere. But building the desert encampment around the Mishkan is really showing us that there's no such thing as just waiting and biding time until we go into the land of Israel. In the Midbar itself, we are focused, we are arranged around the Mishkan, and we are working on that service, working on that connection with Hashem, even in a wilderness. And then if we go further into the book of Bamidbar, we can see that that this is something that carries on, that we learn from the structure, we learn from the constant involvement of the Jewish people with the Mishkan. And then if we look at other subjects of the in the book of Bamidbar, we come to this idea of blessings, and we have in the book of Bamidbar we have the priestly blessings, and this is something that we are privileged. We are in the land of Israel. This is said 3 times a day, and we are in Chutz La'aretz, we have the priestly blessings on the festivals. But the idea that the people were blessed by the Kohanim, this is something that is enshrined, that is ongoing. This is a constant in our lives. And we also have another kind of blessing that we came across in the book of Bamidbar, and that is those are the blessings that came from the mouth of Bilam Harasha, the prophet Bilam, who wanted to cause harm to the Jewish people, wanted to curse the Jewish people, and blessings came out of his mouth. And although there is certain ambivalence that actually the blessings that he uttered, really words that Hashem put in his mouth, because he did not want to bless us at all. but there is an aspect of curse that managed to sneak in, and there was there, sometimes these words were actually were going to bring negative consequences to Bnei Israel, but we actually still read the words of the blessings that came out of his mouth. We have them at the beginning of our Siddur. We have them inscribed on many shuls, for example, Matovu Ohalecha Yaakov. How goodly are your tents, Yaakov, and various other aspects. So this idea of blessing, that we maintain that these blessings were said in the book of Bamidbar, but we continue to refer to them, we continue to utter them, and they are part of our lives. And this is something that was also that we encounter in the book of Bamidbar, the idea of complaints and crises. And I think in that as well, we can see parallels to every human being, to all the time periods, whether as individuals or as nations, that we go through times of crisis, we go through periods of complaint, when perhaps we will not look at what we've got, but rather at what we've not. We'll want other things. We will have man in the wilderness. We will have hamotzi lechem min hashamayim, the miraculous bread that comes from heaven that could taste of anything, and we will say, "But I want meat." And how often do we want what we haven't got? And again, this is something that we can look at the generation of the Midbar and think, how could they have complained in these situations? And I think that if we would look at ourselves with that same magnifying glass, you can see that we are in some way or another also doing that very thing, and really learning from the experience of the generation of the wilderness, that what Hashem is giving us, whether we actually understand it at the time or not, is the best thing for us, and that is our mission, to be able to learn from the complaints and the crises that we read about in the book of Bamidbar, and see them translated into our own lives as well. And then this idea that the Lubavitcher Rebbe expressed, that we can make the title of our book. So the contents of our book, of the book of our lives, may be something that is beyond us, that we do not have choice in many aspects of where we're born, when we're born, and certain things that happen to us. Yet we are able to look at them in a certain way and change, say, from a complaint to something that will actually we'll use as a springboard. We will call something that we regarded as a challenge, something that we regarded in a negative light, we will actually see that as an opportunity. And so throughout all of the events that happen in the book of Bamidbar, we can stand back and we can think of them in this way. And I think that this is something that we can certainly, as we stand on the threshold of coming into the land of Israel in the Chumash, as we stand on the threshold of the 9 days of the severe part of mourning of the 3 weeks, that we can just really reflect on how we look at things, how certain things happen to us, but we can frame them in a certain way. And I think when we look at the concluding Sedra of Masei, this is something that is very beautifully expressed actually by Rashi, because the beginning of the Sedra of Masei talks about the 42 journeys that the Bnei Israel took, and it reads like a travelogue. Exactly, we went to this place and we then journeyed from this place to that place, and it seems to be very, very heavy detail. And Rashi comments, chapter 33 verse 1, these are the journeys. Lama nichtavu hamasaos halalu. Why were these journeys written? Lahodia chasodov shel makom, to make known the acts of kindness of Hashem, she'afal pi shegazar aleihem letaltalam or lahaniyam bamidbar, for although he decreed upon Israel to move them about and make them wander around in the wilderness, lo sema, you should not say, shehayu no'im umatoltalim, that they were wandering and moving about, mimasa lamasa, from journey to journey, kol arba'im shana, for the entire 40 years, below haisala hemanucha, and they had no rest. And then Rashi works out that actually during a period of 38 years, the Bnei Yisrael moved 20 times. And this, by looking at this account of the journeys, then and doing that maths, we will see that Hashem was very kind to us because we didn't move around so much. It wasn't such an arduous, even though it was part of the consequence of the Meraglim, the scouts, and the people's reaction to the report of the scouts, but still we did not have such an onerous task of moving about in having these arduous journeys the whole time. So this is what Rashi says on one reason why these journeys are recorded, to show the kindness of Hashem in this regard. But then the Medrash Tanchuma actually, Rabbi Tanchuma explains it in a different way. Mashal Lamelech, this can be compared to a king, Shehayu beno chole, whose son was ill, V'hoilichu Lamokom Rachok, he took him to a distant place, Laraposo, to heal him, to cure him. Kevan Shahayu Chosrin, once they started back, so once the son had been cured and they were on their way back home, Hitchil Ovid Mone, his father began to count Kol HaMasaos, all of the journeys. Omar Lo, he said to him, Kan Yoshanu, here we slept. Kan Hukarnu, here we felt cold. Kan Chashashta et Roshcha v'chula, here you had a headache, etc. So in the second way of looking at this list, this enumeration of the journeys, it is like reflecting on something that a long journey that had to be undertaken in order to find a cure for somebody who's not well, for a child who's not well. And once the child is cured, on their way back, each time they pass a place where they stopped en route to this expedition to be cured, the father points out all the various things that happened to the son in a loving way as part of the process of the cure of the son. And this is something that is possibly another aspect of the kindness of Hashem. In the first account of Rashi's explanation is that the kindness of Hashem is that Hashem did not impose very hard travel on us even during this time. But in the second, it is part of a healing process that the Bnei Yisrael, our collective nation, needed in order to rectify the things that we have done wrong, the consequences that ensued. And it is on this healing process, we then actually appreciate that everything that we've gone through has somehow taken us to a point of achieving, restoring full health. And again, this is to appreciate the effort that our Father in heaven has made. And at the time, we may not see it like that, but really, this is the fortitude, this is the courage of the message of these journeys. And Rabbi Avigdor Miller, in his book Shabbos Shurim, quotes a very beautiful Rabbi Dessler. He says, Rabbi Dessler used to say, everyone is born into the midst of things and dies in the midst of things. And this is the process of all of the journeys on the route to healing. Everywhere, imperfection, incompleteness, endeavours broken off, ambitions foiled. But in the light of Torah, this is no deterrent at all. That there is no prospect of finishing does not exempt us from making a start. Lo alecha hamlocha ligmor. Even though it is not in our power to complete the task, yet Ve'enata ben chorin levoter memenu. We have no excuse from withdrawing just because we will not necessarily see the very end of the journeys, but still each stage is important. Each stroke of the spirit against the forces of a hostile world, each motion of the heart towards God is valued and cherished for its own sake. And as we reflect on these 42 journeys, as we reflect on our own journeys individually and as a nation, as we feel the hostile world around us, and we really cherish and hold on to these eternal words of the Torah, and please God, we should merit to see the prophecies of the redemption come true very speedily, so that this coming Rosh Chodesh Av will herald not the memories of the destruction and the mourning and the tragedy of the destruction, but please God, the joy of the fulfillment of the rebuilding of the Bet HaMikdash. Thank you very much for listening. Wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom and Chodesh Tov.